We'll now begin and introduce today's workshop. So thank you all for joining us for our first Next Steps Graduate School Prep panel of the day, graduate student panel. And joining us today are Godson Ebenezer Ajobu, right over there on the left. And we have Aldo Barita, who's online with us. Aldo, want to wave? And we also have Brian Connor and Samantha Schaefer. So just to give a brief introduction of all of them, Godson, it looks like you are a student in civil and environmental engineering, pursuing your PhD and a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. Research is focused on remote sensing applications in water quality monitoring. Also happens to be current treasurer of the Graduate and Professional Student Association. So welcome so much. And Ryan, it looks like you are currently working on researching social, emotional, and behavioral wellness programming in elementary schools.
Yes.
Fantastic. So we'll explore a couple of these things further. Samantha is a graduate student in the Department of Communication Studies pursuing her master's degree. She studies family communication in adopted families and works with online education and course development. Ultimate goal is to teach an adoption communication course that spreads awareness about adoption and improves communication patterns in families formed through adoption.
Yes.
And hey, lovely to have you guys here. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Want to definitely learn more about that stuff. And Aldo online, he received his Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from UC Berkeley in 2017 with high honors. His research focus includes how different forms of discrimination, primarily microaggressions, impact the well-being of individuals from marginalized communities. Thanks so much for joining us. And so let's get started. I'm going to start with Mr. Ajobu. What do you wish you knew before submitting your grad application?
Well, that's an interesting question to start with, because knowing a lot before you submit your applications kind of save you. I believe there were a lot of things that I should have familiarized myself with. So when you are applying to graduate school, yeah, some of the things they require of you are maybe a statement of purpose or personal statements. I believe that this, instead of making this generic, like having one statement of purpose for each graduate school application, with the school's website, like if you're able to navigate the school's website and you kind of familiarize yourself with everything, you'll be kind of able to tune in towards the schools. You know, UNLV is one of the most diverse schools in the country. So when you're applying to UNLV, it might be nice to have some kind of idea about UNLV. So, oh, yeah, UNLV is ranked as the best or one of the best diverse schools in the country. It kind of puts you there. When people are reading your statement of purpose, they know that you know what you're about, you know what your focus is, and then if you're able to also read a little bit about the department, so you know that this is what the department do, this is what I want to do for my graduate studies. I want to study using this, I'll be using, maybe I'm a chemist, so I'm going to do chemistry, I'll need this kind of instrument. And I quickly check on the department, I know the department has this, it's good, then you'll be able to put it in your statement of purpose. So what I was saying, I had knew before applying or before my graduate application is to more familiarize myself with the school, the department, and then the graduate school in general, so that it kind of helped me tailoring my application rather than being generic. So that's what I think in that regard.
Wonderful. And to piggyback off of that, maybe potentially speaking and reaching out to a graduate coordinator, and maybe even having that opportunity to discuss, okay, you know, it never hurts to ask their opinion in terms of what I might write.
Yeah, that's great, Kenneth. And then just to add to that, when I was applying to go to graduate school, I realized that some schools offer waivers, and this is something that I didn't know. So UNLV, I reached out to the graduate coordinator, and then it was through our communication that we wanted to find out what my GRE and what my GPA was. And then not knowing to my surprise, I was eligible for application waiver. So I didn't have to pay to come to UNLV. So these are things that you may want to find out way in advance. Let me reach out to the school, the graduate coordinator, get some information. ADU offers application waivers. It's not bad to ask. Who knows? You might save some money by asking. So.
Yeah, who doesn't want to save money? I mean, just spend a little time doing that, and you can save yourself a lot of time and some cash.
Yeah.
So Ryan, same question for you.
What I wish I knew before submitting my application, I wish I was just more familiar with how graduate school works in general. I'm pretty familiar with UNLV. I went to UNLV for my bachelor's. I grew up here in Vegas, so I was pretty familiar with everything, like how to submit the application, what is everything that's needed from me. But I was not really sure how graduate school operated. I wasn't sure that, most of the courses in my program were 3 hours long, what was really demanded, like, of being a graduate student. So definitely, looking into all the programs, contacting, I like never underestimate the power of a phone call, contacting graduate coordinators, contacting the graduate college, contacting the pre-professional advising center, all that kind of good stuff. There's so many resources available to help you kind of figure out where you want to go and how you can get there.
Perfect. Very good. Thanks, Ryan. Samantha, same question. What about you in terms of things you wish you would have known?
Yeah, so I'm going to echo what both of you just said. I think it's so important to also just know your department, like know where you're headed, know what department you're gearing towards, because every department is so different in what they expect out of graduate students, what you need to do to be successful. And I think that it's just so important to know what program you're interested in and really getting into the details of that, because there's a lot about my program that I didn't even realize before I went to orientation. I had not done as much research as I should have. And I think that that's a huge thing, is making sure that you know what department you're going to. And you can also like gear your statement of purpose and those kinds of things to that department. Like Godson said, like it's really important to make it super specific to your department. So I wish I would have just, I guess, gained more knowledge and also made it more department specific, because I think, not that I didn't get into graduate college, but I think it would have helped prepare me more for what to expect.
Excellent. Thanks, Samantha. And Otto, for you, sir, same question, please.
Yes, thank you. I fully agree with my colleagues in the panel. I think one thing I wish I could have known is the amount of time that it was going to take to complete actually the actual applications throughout each school. Each school is completely different around the requirements, around the way they want you to tailor down the statements. And I underestimated that. So I found myself very close to the deadlines, doing last minute edits. And that just created a lot of stress. So I will highly advise everyone who is thinking about applying to not underestimate the time that it's going to take to actually complete the actual applications. I think we all focus on like other parts like the exams or getting the letters or getting the money to apply, but the applications in itself, they also take a lot of time, so don't underestimate that.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. So for myself, I'm also a graduate student. In case you didn't know, I'm a master's in accounting student. I just wrapped up my MBA and a master's in hospitality. And for me, when I went through the process, I failed to communicate with my graduate coordinator. I just talked to the graduate college and they provided me a bunch of useful information. I thought that was really it. But if I had to talk to my graduate coordinator, I would have discovered that they don't necessarily need me to take the entire GMAT. There was a essay and an integrated reasoning part of this GMAT test that I could have just taken easy street on, saved my brain power, and just worried about the verbal and quant. And that would have saved me some headaches had I known that prior. So it's useful to communicate with your graduate coordinator as well as us. So that's my 2 cents. All right, moving on. Great answers so far. Samantha, let's talk about how did you solidify your program of choice?
So I, in my undergrad, took a communication class that I was super interested in. And when I was exploring my options for continuing my education, I really gravitated towards the communication department. And after talking with the grad coordinators, because we had a switch there, so I had to, they really explained to me what it was like. And after understanding what was expected of me and what the department could provide me in return, that's kind of how I solidified my choice in choosing the Department of Communication Studies. And just personal interest as well, like go with what interests you and what your research or like what your areas of interest are. I'm a big fan of like going into something that you're really passionate about, because graduate school is really intense. And if you're not doing it for something that you love, it's not going to be easy. So I think just what I love, and like knowing that adoption communication is like where my heart is at, helped me guide into that direction.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Samantha. Ryan, same question for you.
I just want to reiterate what Samantha said about doing something that you are passionate about, letting your interests guide you and your heart drive you. The way that I narrowed down my program was I'm in clinical mental health counseling, and I knew I wanted to be a therapist, but the kind of mental health world in terms of credentials was a little confusing for me. So, you know, I'm up until joining the program, I honestly didn't really know 100% the differences between psychologist, MFT, a CPC, a social worker. So I definitely looked into all those things, looked into the degree differences, and I ended up choosing clinical mental health over the others purely because of the course list. I feel like the courses really spoke to me. I really liked the outline of how, you know, the program is laid out. And yeah, I looked at a couple other programs as well other than at UNLV, but this is my alma mater, and you know, it's home. So again, I really love the course list. So really research everything about your program. What courses you have to take, what makes the most sense to you, what feels like it aligns the most with you in terms of what programs and that kind of thing.
So Ryan, when you mentioned the comparisons that you made between, I guess, clinical mental health and couples and family therapy and psychology, you did a side-by-side comparison essentially and kind of took a look at the course list. And did you reach out to graduate coordinators as well and discuss the program? You did not do that.
So I did, I actually had an application open for social work and for clinical mental health counseling at the same time. Also, you know, the application process influenced my decision as well. I did know a professor who was a social work professor at UNLV that I kind of discussed, you know, the situation with her and got her input, and then I still kind of ended up feeling that the clinical mental health route was the best for me personally.
But ultimately, you did a bunch of research.
Right.
Followed your heart. Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. Godson, sir.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what my co-panelists have said so far. I mean, it's all about interest. Unlike undergrad, and then also not really US specific, but I know somewhere like sometimes you find yourself in a program that's not what you want to do. Like back at home, sometimes like when you apply to school for undergraduate studies, maybe you want to do a particular course, but because of probably the limited spaces and other things available, you may end up getting a course which is not of your first choice, especially for undergraduate, not for graduate school. So it kind of, what it means is that you now have to adjust and kind of, maybe that course might not be your interest, but because that's the option available and you also want to go to school and you don't want to probably sit at home, you just have to realign and then focus and then try to grab the concept and go. In that case, becomes a little harder for you because this is not what you want to do. But what I'm trying to say with graduate school, everywhere I know, even back at home with graduate school, it's more like focus. This is what I want to do. With graduate school, you are likely to get whatever you are going for. So it should be like, this is my interest. This is what I feel like I can succeed. I look at my future. What are my ambitions? What are my goals? What problems do I want to solve? Maybe for me, growing up, I see a lot of issues around me, which were water issues. I see flooding almost every now and then. I see water issues. I see people are struggling to find water. Personally, I had to walk several miles when I was growing up to fetch water, to even back to go to school. So I look at all this and I reflected back and I see that the struggles, what could I do different? What can be done to alleviate these situations? Putting myself in that position, I see myself in years to come and say, I should be somewhere to provide solutions, to be somewhere to find needs for these problems. And then that's how I started thinking. So when the opportunity came for me to do civil engineering, though initially that wasn't what I wanted to do, but I ended up, and then right now I finished I have both my bachelor's and master's in civil, and I'm just proceeding in that direction just to increase my knowledge base to be able to find solutions in this regard. So it's all about interest and what you want to do. And sometimes when you find yourself in areas that you feel like this is not where I want to be, you may want to readjust, you may want to reassess yourself and see if indeed this is what I want to do. Maybe for all you know, you may have some kind of innate potential in you that you need to just bring it up and develop it a little bit in order to succeed.
Wonderful. Education for you is a noble pursuit, it seems. Absolutely. Excellent.
Thanks.
Aldo, what about yourself, sir?
Well, I agree with everything that everyone else say, especially being passionate about what you want to study, because you're going to be doing it for many, many years. So passion is definitely necessary to keep up. I think there's two aspects to deciding where you want to go. One is when you're actually applying, because then you have to do your research about looking about the schools, looking about the programs, the professors, if there are specific professors that you would like to work with, or funding is key. What funding opportunities the school provides, location, if that's important to you. So I think that there's also non-traditional students who are thinking about family, relocation, things like that. So those are all factors when you are deciding where to apply. And then hopefully after you complete it and the application process, then you get more than one offer. And I think that's when you also then once again have to go through this process of auditing the school more in detail. I was fortunate to get into 2 schools for my PhD. And then when it came down to that, it was about the mentorship style of the person that was going to be my academic advisor, how much investment that person was going to have on me, if our career goals align in some ways. Because I think everything else was better at that point. Like I knew what schools were going to offer funding. I knew what the schools were going to be supportive of me, but mentorship, it's key for many, many programs in PhD. And if you don't have the right mentor, whatever that looks like for you, it can make it or break it for you in PhDs.
Excellent. Thanks, Aldo. For me, just to put in my 2 cents, I took a bit of a break from work. I kind of semi-retired. I was a CFO for a resort in South Carolina. And in order to augment my skill sabbatical, what I call it, it was a lengthy semi-retirement. I decided to go back to school, and I figured an MBA and a master's in science and hotel, this would be a great place to do it. And now I'm doing the accounting and studying for the CPA exam. So it just made sense for me. So a little bit more clinical, maybe not the passion that you hear from here, but there's a bunch of different reasons why people go back to school. All right, moving forward in terms of, okay, we're going to go to Ryan next. Who or what has been the best resource for getting into grad school?
So kind of like I mentioned for the last question, I did have a few professors that I was still a little bit in touch with from my undergrad. So that was really helpful, but going back to the first question, did not know about many resources or utilize many resources when it came to applying, getting in, having those kind of points of contact. So once I actually got into the program, I was very much, in contact with the Graduate College, with the College of Education, with my graduate coordinator, researching graduate assistantship opportunities. So prior to getting in, I didn't utilize really anything much other than the professors I had relationships with. But upon actually getting admitted to the program, I was shooting emails at everybody, and they probably were really annoyed with me. But definitely the Graduate College, the college that your program is a part of, your coordinator, and you get assigned an advisor usually, and really you want to make sure that you're keeping in touch with all of these people, touching base with them, making sure you're on track and knowing exactly what's needed of you, especially as a new student. There's certain requirements that you have to, like paperwork you have to do. So
yeah, super important, particularly in the beginning of your coursework, right? To keep that constant contact with those graduate coordinators, just to make sure you're taking advantage of all the opportunities that are made available to us. And there's so many free resources at UNLV for graduate students that it'd be criminal not to take advantage of all of them. Aldo, what about you in terms of best resources for getting into grad school?
I did not use the graduate coordinators, I'm afraid to say, and I probably should have. Luckily worked out for me. But I will say that for me, one of the biggest help was coming from my letter writers, the professors that I asked to write the letters. They really guided me into the process of what it looks like, to apply for grad school. I'm a first generation student, so I was not familiar with it at all. I will say once you make a selection of the school, then yes, I have received a lot of help from the Graduate College from the get-go, just asking questions around all types of resources. So I think that that in itself also helps you determine if you're still in the right program or you're choosing the right program as well.
Thanks, Aldo. Godson, same question.
Well, I would say I'll answer this from two perspectives, like what it was for me and what I'm realizing now as it is that I will give undergraduate as an advice. So what it was for me really was a graduate school. Graduate college, I was in constant touch when I need to find out whether some requirements I needed for me. I'm an international student. And when I was coming, I realized that you need some English tests. But then here's the case, I was already having my master's in US. So I have to reach out to them to find out whether indeed that was required of me or not. And that will save you a lot. Whether if you don't ask, you may end up assuming and then taking certain decisions that you realize that you just have spent money and then time. So the graduate school was one, a graduate coordinator. I reached out to my graduate coordinator. I felt like the deadline, I'm not too sure about that, but I think my application deadline was passed, but I didn't know. So I had to reach out to him and he was like, oh, you're already in the US. I mean, the reason why they give international students earlier deadlines for the visa applications and all those, you're already here, so you can send an application. So all those things will help you. If you're not sure about something, just ask the graduate coordinators, and then the graduate school, they are always happy to assist you. So I would say my best resource is them, and then some friends that were very instrumental, and then people I could contact, people were ahead of me, I made use of them. And then, so that's the perspective of the resources that were available. Now, being a graduate school, realizing there are certain things I realized that I feel like they could have been more of resourceful to me, and that's where I'm coming from, to kind of just give an advice to potential graduate students who are here. So what I would say is that you could utilize friends. If you have friends who are graduate students who are in the program of interest, they could be the great source to you. You could just talk to them about the program requirements and then see whether you are prepared for them. And then also take decisions and initiatives in order to work towards them. And then you could also talk to the graduate school and then department in case you just need one-on-one. Sometimes I know UNLV has a whole lot of programs like the Grad Advantage program that you are paired with graduate students. So these are things that I feel like it could be resourceful to you. Only if you have the time, you may want to try some of these things, just to increase your knowledge base and then to reduce the time, because some of these graduate students are there to help you in case of resume. You want to review your resume, you want to review your statement of purpose. Since they've gone through the process, it becomes easier, and they will offer you like more definite responses than searching online and internet that maybe sometimes you see fake and a whole lot of things that may take your time. So those are my advice.
So one thing you mentioned, Godson, a deadline had passed, but you were still able to get in. So that's a point of note for me, because I have experienced something the other day. I was in a recruiting event. A friend of mine was trying to get a job in an accounting firm. Their deadline had passed, and she asked the question, can I still apply? And they said yes. Now, I'm not promising anything on behalf of the graduate college here, but you never know. Sometimes it might make sense just to ask that question. We obviously want you to get your applications in on time, but there are certain situations and stipulations and isolated incidents where it might not be a no-go. So you never know unless you ask. So moving on, Samantha, same question for you.
So I agree 100% with Brian. It's so important to reach out to the professors in your department, especially because for me, my professors were the ones to help me figure out like where to apply and kind of what the process looked like. I agree with Aldo that they were many of my letter writers. They wrote my letters of recommendation. So I think that if you have an area of interest, and it's okay if you don't, but like take classes in that field, get to know the department, get to know those professors, build relationships with them, go to their office hours, do those kinds of things, because you get to know what that department is like in terms of research, in terms of their experience, in terms of the community that they have. Something that I really loved about the communication department was that they had such an open and welcoming community, and I knew that was something I wanted to be a part of. And so I think just getting a feel for your department, through the professors, and they're such a helpful resource in that. So I would highly recommend using your professors as a resource. Also, the grad coordinators are very helpful, and that's something I relied on a lot. I sent lots of emails. I actually think I had the cell phone number of my grad coordinator at one point, and I'd like anxiously write questions. But super helpful. They're always there to help you. And yeah, friends and family help in a sense, like just providing moral support. It's a stressful process, or it can be a stressful process applying and making sure everything's in on time. So just making sure you have a big community of people, I think will help.
Thank you so much. All right, Aldo, question for you. We're going to kick off. What do you hope to accomplish while in grad school?
Wow, that's a lot of one. I think that for me, I am planning to go into academia after my PhD. So for me, it's fortifying my skills, both as a researcher, as well as a mentor and a professor, which is something that I try to continuously work on. I'm grateful for the Graduate College because they offer actually a lot of programs that help you fortify these skills, like the RAM program, or even the ambassador program if you want leadership experience. And for me, it's also like building connections, creating a community of research within my field, getting to know those that are in my field of research so that I can continue to collaborating with them in the future.
Excellent. Thanks, Aldo. Godson, same question for you.
Well, just like Aldo said, I'm also looking at industry and academia as well. So while in the graduate school, I hope to kind of develop myself in being able to do some publication or work towards it, and then also to get some scholastic activities, and then participate in the graduate school programs, just all to kind of equip myself and prepare myself that. And then I hope to also take advantage of the graduate school programs like the mentorship, and then also professional development, like in terms of me going into the industry for my career. I wish to kind of develop myself. What I wish to, I said, just not get my degree at the end, I get my degree and work out of it, but also get myself developed by being exposed to several opportunities on campus, and then getting myself involved with campus activities.
Very nice. A well-rounded approach.
Yes.
So
Yes.
not all, you're not hitting the books every day, all day.
In a just a simple term, I want to be a holistically model individual. Yes.
Eat well, 3 square meals, 8 hours of sleep. It can all happen as a graduate student here at UNLV. All right, Samantha, what about yourself?
So for me, I hope to end up with a product that I'm proud of, I guess. I want to open career paths with my degree. I want to build relationships with the people in my department, with my fellow grad students, with the UNLV community. I'm working on developing a class right now. I want to have a product that I'm proud of and something that I can implement for my career. So those are like my more specific goals, but I agree. I want to be a really well-rounded graduate student. So I want to have those professional experiences. I want to do the certificates. I want to, get involved in the community in more ways than just my department or my master's program.
And Ryan?
I agree with everything that everyone has said. In my undergrad, I will say that I was more so focused on the end goal rather than the journey. And now as a graduate student, I took a break from school for 3 years, came back, and I'm really focusing this time on the full experience of being a graduate student, of being a graduate professional. I want to embark on all different types of professional development, growth in all areas. That's not only going to give back to UNLV, to the community, to the graduate college, but also myself and my program and what I hope to accomplish. So I obviously want to end with my degree, but and gain the experience in the meantime to feel ready to go into the professional world, post graduation. But the process, joining these programs, joining like different organizations, really connecting with everybody in your program, in the community, with the things that are important to you. That's my focus. And one of the big ones is that I really, really want to get into research. I never did research before, so I'm a part of a research project right now, which is super exciting. And just there's so many opportunities for you to, if you haven't done something before, you don't have any experience right now in your undergraduate program, there's so many opportunities to start as a graduate student, and you can do it.
Amazing answers, I think. Thanks so much for those. It's amazing to think that as we become, I mean, graduate students are busy, and it seems like you might only have an opportunity just to study your curriculum and go to class and do your homework. But when you hear these people's responses, it seems like their lives, the busier they get, the more they get done. And I think that's a huge factor. It's amazing. You can find the time, and it's important. So thanks so much for your answers. Godson, another question. How did you manage the stress of multiple deadlines?
It's a hard one. We all face stress every day. Right now, you're thinking about something you have to do the next moment.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it's a hard one, but I would say plan, and try to execute. So as you plan, you try to execute. You just don't have plans without execution. So every now and then before probably every I would just say once in a week, you should just have like 10 minutes that you look at your activities that you have coming up in a week or the next month. So you look at the ones that are close to you and you see how to work to have them done. So you just don't have like a plan without trying to execute. So for like potential graduate students or people who are aspiring to go to the graduate school, I know the graduate school has shared like a planner with you, like say, let's just take it in terms of applying to go to school. You have planner, you have a list of schools you want to go, you have their requirement, and you have the deadline. So each time you just look at which one is close enough. So if this week I'm looking and I see that I have an application which is due 2 weeks time, you try to get that done out of your way. You don't wait to the last minute because a lot of things can happen. And yeah, sometimes you just want to go somewhere, you're on the way and then there's a crash on the road, then it slows, there's traffic is brought to halt. Sometimes you may end up spending about 30 minutes in traffic, which was not part of your plans. And then you waste that time. All those things come, because life is full of, we have a lot of unforeseen situations. You don't know what is ahead of you tomorrow. So we try to, if something is due tomorrow, you try to at least work towards finishing it a day before so that you're able to meet. Other than that, it comes and then you're not able to finish that. And then that alone, you're not able to meet that deadline, you couldn't submit it. It will end up affecting the sequence of events. And then you'll be stressed. You'll be broken down. Graduate school itself is already stressful. And then if you don't really, if you're not careful, that thing might even lead you to the whole semester, might just ruin your whole semester, and then you may end up not performing and then to satisfaction, and then that's not a good thing. So
not just plan for the things you have to do, but plan for the unexpected events in
unexpected
life.
as well. Yes,
Yeah.
that's life.
So perfect, absolutely. Samantha, what about yourself?
So something that I do to tackle the stress that comes with grad school is take it week by week. When I look at my entire semester and all the things that I have on my plate, it can get very overwhelming. They're all necessary things, but taking it week by week, okay, what do I need to do in this next 7 days to continue my success? That really helps me. So I have my whole planner of like the next year. So I just write in that. But I also have a weekly calendar and I write down just what's due that week. And it helps me to not feel overwhelmed and I can dedicate myself to those tasks. And I think just remembering that it's okay to step away from things as well. I've had to be very strict with my time away. So I want to turn my computer off. I want to get away. So it's also important to take care of yourself in grad school, to have that time away, because you'll be more productive in the end if you're taken care of. And just remember, like, it's okay. Like, prioritize the things that are important. And if you can't get to everything, be lenient on yourself. You are a person at the end of the day, and it's going to be okay. You will make it through as long as you are dedicated in the end to getting that work done. So something I do to manage the stress is just incorporate some me time and take a deep breath a lot. I take a lot of deep breaths, but it will be okay. So
I love that. I think Samantha hit it on the head. And sometimes our internal dialogue is pretty rude. And we wouldn't necessarily even be the best friends with ourselves. So think about maybe what your best friend would say to yourself and maybe channel that emotional support in terms of being lenient. Because we all fail sometimes and we tend to learn from it. Yes, Jenna.
I just want to say thank you all for being here. This has been great. Ken, thanks for moderating. We have a question on Zoom from
Wonderful.
Andrew. And so Andrew wants to know, although I feel like this might be a good question for you, I wanted to ask, what are some strategies for creating an inclusive environment in your department and within your research group?
Okay. Well, that's also another loaded question. No, I think it's interesting the way the question is written, and I think I kind of want to just kind of remind everyone that it's not your responsibility to create inclusive environments. The responsibility should be in the institution. So I think that needs to be named first, or the department, or whatever agency you're talking about. But I do think that you can still do advocacy for yourself and for others, especially when you recognize that maybe the student body is not as diverse, or maybe the faculty body is not as diverse as the institution itself. Is heavily diverse when it comes to undergrad student body, and do that advocacy, right? I do believe that seeking community is key. There are many places within UNLV, for example, like the Social Justice Center, or there are groups that are specifically for racial identity or LGBTQ identity, for example. I think it's important to seek community because that will be key for your success. But I just want to emphasize that the responsibility of creating a diverse or inclusive environment should not fall on the student.
Thanks, Aldo. We had another question as well from Chloe. So Chloe wants to know, is it a good idea to attend graduate school if you don't know what career you want to pursue?
I'll say yes, 100%. If you know an area of interest, I would say that's the big thing. If you don't know what you're interested in, I would say no. But for me, I'm still working on finding what I want to do after grad school. So my first semester, I was a graduate assistant. So I taught Com 101, and doing that ignited this passion in me to teach. And I'm so interested in pursuing that route. And so now I have a more pointed direction of like wanting to teach, but going into grad college, I didn't really know that. I was kind of waiting for that moment to kind of hit me, and it did. Not that it will happen for everyone, but I think just gaining more educational experiences can help you figure out what that career path is. And it's okay not to know 100%.
Yes, exactly what Samantha said. I would say you should, in my personal opinion, have a general, interest in your program, or yet aware of the potential career paths from the program that you're deciding to go to. Like, that's going to be a good direction. Having a master's degree is going to look good no matter what. And there are usually a lot of career options for you with most master's degrees. So same as Samantha, I don't know which direction I want to go, but being in this program, I think I went in with an idea, and so far, my idea has changed like 5 times, but it's all great. It's just new opportunities, and more options for me have opened up since joining this program. And, that's going to continue to happen with whatever you decide to do, and you're going to increase your, critical thinking skills, your self-reflection, connections, conceptualizations of ideas. And these are all very general skills that you can apply to anything that you do.
Do you want to add anything?
I agree with all what they said. I mean, even if you don't know the career path and you are in it, and you start taking classes, you kind of realize where exactly you want to go. Sometimes you will try with other departments. The US education system says that aside maybe some required classes you're supposed to take for your department, you are open to take any class anywhere. So you can probably take classes elsewhere whilst you still try to find your way out. And then as you're taking this class, you may find something that this is your interest. Then you start to go into it. it's better that way also. Maybe at the end you are in it and you feel like this is not what is for me, and then you just change the program, and then sometimes you're allowed to transfer credits, and you transfer. In that case, you don't waste time thinking at home, thinking for 1 year, 2 years what I want to do for my career. So I think even if you don't know what career path you want to go, it's a great step to start graduate school to be able to discover yourself.
That's awesome. We have another Zoom question. You all are also welcome to ask questions if you would like, for those of you that are here in person. So this was from Darlin, and she wants to know what has been, oh, sorry, that's not the right question. Backing it up here. Okay. What is one thing that you feel like your undergraduate did not prepare you for in terms of graduate school? I feel like there's a lot of ways you could answer this question.
I can give it a go. I think that for undergrad school, we're so oriented around grades. I think grades are a big part of your identity, right? Like trying to get A's on all your classes, trying to ace the exams. In grad school, depending on the program, so I'm just only speaking for my program, you still take required courses that are part of your area of emphasis. But grades, like you want to pass the class, but getting an A, it's not anymore. It's no longer the main priority. The main priority is your own research. And that's something new, because then you are kind of self-teaching yourself many times. You're trying to look for the answers left and right on how to put a study together, how to submit it to IRB, how to complete, data analysis, and all these things. Many times you complete it on your own for the first time. It's good if undergrad students go and participate in research in different labs so that they can get a little part of this experience. But once you go into grad school, all of this, it's on your own. And that's new. I feel that that's something that you were never asked to do in undergrad, unless you were doing an honor thesis or something like that.
Thanks, Aldo. Y'all want to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to add that my undergrad experience didn't prepare me for the switch that has to happen between you consuming knowledge, you reading the papers, participating in questions with your professor, to then creating the knowledge, because you become the creator of that knowledge. You initiate discussions that no one's having. You continue discussions that you find really interesting. I think that's part of building the inclusive environment that we talked about earlier. I think you can bring up questions that no one's bringing up in your department. Why aren't we talking about inclusive environments? Why aren't we talking about diversity? So I think you become an influencer in that way. And it's really a cool thing, but my undergrad didn't prepare me for generating that knowledge for others. Yeah.
Does your undergraduate degree have to connect to what you want to study in graduate school?
No, not necessarily. So just for me anyway, I received my bachelor's in criminal justice with a minor in sociology. And then I took 3 years off, and then I applied for this program, and I was like, I don't have any research. I don't have any background in mental health, in psych. I took a psychology class, maybe 2 in my undergrad, but so that was a little bit of a worry for me. I wasn't sure if I was going to get into the program, but all of that you did in your undergrad, any experience, other academic experience, any volunteer experience, your passion comes through in your personal statement or your statement of purpose, whichever you have to do. So those all have, a play, your GPA, your letters of recommendation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, this kind of straight, oh, I, went from this program and now I have to do a graduate program in the same, area.
I'd like to just add, I agree with Ryan, but it's a program by program basis. It depends largely. So let's say you wanted to get involved in, you wanted to study a master's in science and quantitative finance. Now, if you didn't have a fairly heavy quantitative or mathematical background, you might have a tough time on some of these econometric classes that they assume you've already taken as you jump into data modeling, day 1. So it depends on the program, but it doesn't necessarily have to correlate. Of course.
This is more directed to Ryan because I am applying for your program. With volunteer hours, what do you recommend? Because I started off with 0 last semester and I did not get into my program when I first applied, but I'm working on it now, getting more volunteer hours. Do you have any suggestions on how many is required or anything like that in general?
I am not sure that they had, when I applied, I'm not sure if there was a specific requirement for how many volunteer hours you need, but you know, I say it would just kind of come down to showing that you have put in, you know, a solid amount of time over at least, you know, a year or 2 years or so, that shows that you are active in the community to some level. Any amount is going to be helpful, but definitely, you know, it's going from, even if you just have like 10 volunteer hours, or if you list that you volunteered at some organization for the course of a year. So that any of that is going to be helpful, but there's not a specific number. That might be good to reach out to the graduate coordinator of the program and kind of ask them those questions, what they recommend, and you know what will give you the best chance at you know, being accepted into the program based on that.
We have another question on Zoom. So Andrew wanted to know, again, Andrew, he wanted to know what your most valuable or exciting and memorable, whatever word you want to use, experience in graduate school is.
Take some time to ponder it.
Also a loaded question, although.
I have one. My most memorable experience so far, I submitted a paper to a conference and it got accepted and I got to present it, and now I'm working on getting it published. But that moment of presenting and like having my work, like I can now look it up on Google, which is like really cool for me. That moment was one of the most memorable experiences for my grad program, and something like I can still distinctly remember the day I presented. It was so cool, like my first conference. I was so proud of my work. And so I think it's just seeing that come to life is like really memorable experience in grad school.
Anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, well, grad school is going to be full of firsts, and I think that every first is going to be memorable, like your first semester, your first year, your first conference, your first failure even. You're going to remember those too, and you're going to learn from those as well. So yeah, I feel like every first, it's memorable, and we just celebrate it, or you know, we learn from it.
I'll add that I think my most memorable experience up to this point is definitely starting my practicum and actually putting everything that I'm learning in grad school into practice and getting to practice within my field. That was definitely, it was a weird but exciting feeling, because you get part of it that's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but then you're just going along and you're learning so much though, like you don't realize how much you learn when you're actually doing it versus when you're in class learning about it. So that was probably my most memorable experience so far.
I think they said it, or I had a chance to do an internship, and just the past summer, being an international student, get the opportunity to do my internship as a grad student. But like it was an exciting period for me to get some experience. Yeah.
Well, I did want, we were gonna wrap up on one question, and I don't think Ryan got to answer it, because I was very interested in what the clinical mental health counselor would say about this. But in terms of the stress, I don't think you answered that question when we were talking about stress. How do you handle stress?
I'm not gonna lie, not very well. When it came to, I will say, since joining this program, it's gotten astronomically better. And not only that, just in terms of my own care for myself, my own time management skills. When I was completing the application, I was like, okay, I have all these deadlines for this application. I was not like in the school mode at all. I've been out of school for like 3 years. I was just working. I was like, okay, I gotta get back to to-do lists. Like, when do I have this due? How long is each thing gonna take me? How can I knock this out? How can I schedule these things out? And now in grad school, there is a lot going on. There are, usually weekly assignments that are due that are kind of consistent, and you're like, okay. But then you have those papers, those projects, those, other more time consuming assignments that you have to work on that kind of pop up at you. So a lot to what Samantha said, really using those like weekly schedules, using a planner, using several methods in conjunction with one another to make sure you have all of your bases covered at all times, because you are, well, I don't know about you, but I am gonna forget things. And so, write everything down, plan for the unexpected, give yourself cushions because you can't really plan for something you don't know what's gonna happen yet, but you can give yourself cushion time so that if something comes up, you can easily adjust, you can move things around, be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. It's okay. You are also more important than anything else in, your assignments, your grades. You can't get your, what are you gonna get done if you're not around to do it anymore? So take care of yourself. If you notice you're getting stressed out, talk to somebody, get support. Use all of the tools that you can to try to manage it as best as you can. Take some time for yourself, like Samantha said, you really need to have that me time. And if you don't, you need to make time for it, or even if you have a deadline. But if you find yourself on the edge of burnout, you don't want to, have to get to that point and try to reverse it. So that's my 2 cents on stress management. But
Yeah, there's psychological services on campus available
Yes.
for all students. And just like all you guys noted, I think it's important to offload your brain, right? In terms of putting these things down and preparing. I think Godson had sort of a bird's eye view. You were a little bit more weekly. So offload your brain because you can't keep everything in there. Make a plan. And are we running up on time here? We are? Okay, well, we just want to thank everybody at home and in the office. So thanks so much for being here. I think we had a wonderful time with our guests and our panel. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Godson. Thank you, Aldo. Congrats, everybody. And we hope to see you on campus soon as one of our newest grad rebels. Come and join us.
Before you all run away, we actually have 2 mini scholarships to give away for our first 10 o'clock session. So thanks for attending. So Isaac online, hopefully you're still up, Isaac, you won one of our mini scholarships, and Alex in person, you won our other mini scholarship. So please come see Lake Bella for details about that. So congratulations. Our next session will be starting in about 5 minutes. So if you want to stay, you're more than welcome. There's snacks in the room right behind these whiteboards. So you're welcome to grab a donut or some chips or whatever you'd like. And you're welcome to hang out here for the next session if you would like. Otherwise, hope you learned a lot, and they'll be here if you have any questions or want to trade contact information. Sorry, I just offered you all. And enjoy your day. Thanks for coming.
Wrong folder.
So
New
for
word I
those of you
learned.
first time, do you want to mingle? If our panelists could meet to this side of the room? Make your way over there. Be prepared for the next one.
Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, that was
You did
awesome.
great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, tell me how much. How did I do?
Great.
Thanks.
No, it was great. Like, really well.